So you think you know humor. You don't. Okay, we don't. Look, we love humor. We use it, we need it. But what is it? And are we getting the most out of it? My experience suggests that if we could use humor in places that we often don't, particularly in places such as negative emotional moments, lives can get a lot better. Certainly a lot funner, but even more effective. So healthier, more productive lives now and for the rest of our lives. How? Well, let's try to figure that out. First, a little bit about me. I grew up here in Toronto, graduated from the University of Toronto, Scarborough. Yes, it's possible. You can do it. So I was born in 1964. That makes me 51 Canadian, so it's about 35 US. Living now in Stouffville, Ontario. Rhymes with Slowville for a reason. If you've ever been there, you should just leave quickly. But here's the picture of my lovely family. My wife, Monica, our 5 children. My oldest, Emily, on the far right here. As a product manager, I think of her as kind of our prototype. Focus groups went well, and we rolled out the remaining 4. This was the picture I was supposed to send around at Christmas. This is the one Daddy did send around at Christmas. Sorry, Monica. So, as we ease into this concept of humor, it makes sense to start with a joke, right? I hope someone's got one. No? Okay, I will try to remember one. Actually, this is a fun story. I called my mother the other day. I said, Mom, how are you? She said, eh. I said, Mom, what? How are you? She said, well, I've been better. I said, Mom, you've been better. What's wrong? She said, well, I haven't eaten in 28 days. I said, Mom, why haven't you eaten in 28 days? She said, because I didn't want to have food in my mouth when you called. Try a better one? All right, so in keeping with humor and trying to manage my emotions, last May when it was my birthday, had to go to the licensing office to get a new license. Standing in line forever, finally get to the front of the line, the girl's on the phone, what sounded like her boyfriend, driving me crazy, and I thought I'm gonna get back at her. She finally goes next, she calls me up, name, Bill McConkey, where do you live? I told her my address. She said, when's your birthday? I said, May 3rd. She said, what year? I said, every year. Yeah, huh? Yeah, summers were great at home. Don't be the youngest, okay? It's just hard on you. Why are things funny? It's interesting to kind of figure that out and then figure out what we can do with this humor, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound like a nice idea? Well, turns out there are a lot of theories of what makes something funny. What is humor in itself, right? A lot of smart people have been trying to figure that out for centuries. All you philosophers and others have studied Immanuel Kant. He was part of this thing called incongruity theory. For centuries, we just looked at the object of the humor and said, look, there's something incongruous. It didn't make sense. And out of that, we just reacted with this sense of humor, this physical feeling of humor. As far back as ancient times, Plato and Aristotle, they thought of humor as something called superiority theory. They said that, in experiencing humor, you actually experience a feeling of superiority as you figure something out that perhaps other people haven't figured out. And then there's, our friend Freud, who, by the way, I'd love to learn about his mother, wouldn't you? I'd also like to party with him, but he's not answering my calls. Anyway, Freud, what did he say? Well, no surprise. He said, look, is this tension, this stress built up in the subconscious, and that humor is this way to release the stress that builds up with all of our subconscious rage. Neuroscientists have also weighed in on what the heck humor is. This is really cool. Oh, no, that looks like an oven with 4 turkeys. Okay, I'll pretend these are actually 4 views of the brain. You see the left hemisphere over there, the right over here. I think we all know that the brain is separated into these 2 lobes, and the left hemisphere is the bean counter. You know, we all know those people. They're in our management department. They're really interesting, not. And, you know, they count and, you know, numbers, words, and putting them together in logical forms, what the left side of the brain does. The right side of the brain is the artist, the poet, the spatial reasoning and things like that. What this research is showing is the amazing use of all of the brain as it processes humorous input. Logic, memory, language, emotion, and cognition, all these things working on understanding and processing humorous input. It's also interesting, I think, to study the application of humor over time, over the centuries. You know, for centuries, the world enjoyed the farce, this theatrical extravagance and extreme sense of humor. There's also dark humor. Something called slapstick. Anyone still like slapstick? That was, who is this, I don't know, who's this, Einstein? Who's that? Charlie Chaplin, thank you. Chaplin, the Three Stooges, people like that. More recently, Chevy Chase. The idea of this is physical humor. We love pratfalls. I think it makes us all feel better about ourselves. The idea of slapstick, of course, is that it was actually a stick that they used to use to make a sound. Sounded like it was really hard hit, but it was hollow. But that's where the name came from. One of my favorites, parody. Take art forms and make fun of them. Mel Brooks is my hero in that regard. He makes fun of every movie genre imaginable. Here's Star Wars. Another area, satire. People often get mixed up with parody. Satire is pretty cool, though. It's more about making fun at all of us together, you know, commenting through humor on our social issues. Literally. If I hear another 20-year-old say the word literally, I will literally do something wrong with them. And imitations. We love imitations, don't we? I do a few. I'll try to do a few. The reason I do a few is because I have a big family, as you saw. I'm the cheapest dad on this planet, possibly a few other planets. I was told, you know, once the kids are a certain age, you got to take them to Disney World and Universal Studios and things like that. And I said, well, no, that costs money. Why don't I just imitate them? So I really can't see anyone, but, you know, shout out from the world, the cartoony world, who wants to hear an imitation? Bugs. What's that? Oh, no, I didn't even know that. Goofy? Okay, Mick, good to see ya. I actually have been working on this love triangle between he and Minnie and Mickey, but that's for another talk. And the Simpsons are great. You know, everyone loves the Simpsons, right? Simpson-y, I like the cut of your jib, right? We weren't allowing the children to watch The Simpsons. We're a little adult, but they were allowed to watch me. It was really fun. Who else? Marge. Oh, you don't want to see a grown man try to do Marge. Okay, well, there was this one episode where Homer wants Marge to go out to a movie with him, but it's kind of last minute, and he says something like, "Oh, come on, Marge, it'll be fun." And she looks at him, Marge, you know, she's every woman. She's smart, she's reliable. She goes, "Homie, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Where are we going to get a babysitter?" So we love imitation for some crazy reason, don't we? So why do we laugh? Well, one thing's interesting. Laughter and humor are identical. Sometimes we laugh for reasons that are not based on humor, like relief and things like that, when we're nervous. Same time, sometimes you'll experience humor, you won't necessarily laugh. Well, neuroscientist Robert Proven, he suggests that there is an evolutionary nature to laughter, and that it's a social phenomenon. Oh man, they're getting everywhere. The minions are everywhere. I bet you there's going to be a slide with Adele on it soon, and I didn't even put it there. I know I love her too. But the idea is this, that before formal language developed, we had a few other tools, and laughter was one of them. We could signal things. We could set the situation, right? Think how powerful that is. People would know what kind of mood we're in and how serious we are and those sorts of things. So language was seen in this model as not just how we're feeling, we feel like laughter, but expressing and influencing the other person. Case in point, go back to my little sound machine. Let's do this. Isn't that neat? I did nothing funny, but you laughed because you heard someone else laughing. And that's the point. As we look to the benefits and the uses of laughter, one of the interesting or of humor, one of the interesting things to talk about is this sense of immediacy. Teachers in the classroom who exhibit immediacy, bosses in the office, the same thing, parents, they show off a genuine desire to be there, an interest in each of you as individuals. They're not just walking in to do a job and walking out. That's what immediacy is. And teachers who rate high on that are seen as great teachers. They're much more successful in the classroom. Well, I see humor as another dimension of immediacy. If you're going to come in and try to engage people through humor and other devices, you'll be a better teacher. Humor and emotions. This is my daughter Kelly finding out that I'm cooking that night. That didn't go well. We learned through lots of other research that humor has a calming effect. Humor helps us deal with our blood pressure. Humor helps us with immune system function. Humor even helps deal with the stress hormone cortisol. This is interesting. Humor and memory. So first of all, I think we already had a sense from education and from advertising that we use humor first to get people's attention and then to keep their attention and get them to like us. We remember those ads better if we've connected through humor. But what's also true is something, it goes even beyond that. Humor is so powerful in terms of memory that I want to tell you about another model called mood congruency theory. In psychology, this means this. You know, if you go somewhere to an event or a hotel, and a week or two later you get a questionnaire, survey. If you fill in that survey when you're in a great mood, you tend to remember the great things about the event. Conversely, the same. If you fill it in while you're just in the rotten mood, you'll remember that no one talked to you at the thing, that the air conditioner didn't work, the bed was too hard. Except when humor is involved. If you're thinking, remembering humorous events, it doesn't matter what mood you're in, you remember them better because that was done with humor. There are some cautions to the use of humor, of course. Humor, there's this thing called a correlation heuristic, which means if you're too silly, people might not necessarily think you know anything. So you got to know how to use the humor, right? It's also true that people get tired of certain humors, so it's called habituation. You know, something funny today isn't necessarily funny tomorrow. And finally, just too many things going on in a conversation, you can confuse people. So those are just some brief cautions. Oops, didn't want you to see that one yet. I want to talk a few more minutes about some of the other places where we see humor and how we can use humor. The classic one, of course, we all know about comedy, the comedy, and the sitcom in particular, humor as entertainment. So I don't want to talk about that. We use it, but I want to go way beyond that. By the way, what's the best comedy of all time? No? No? No. No, not Cheers. Are you kidding me? Stop it. Anyone? Okay, I Love Lucy is tied with this. So you get the Beverly Hillbillies. You've never seen it, watch it. It's homework. Where else are we going to use humor? I mentioned this briefly before in selling. Getting them to notice you. This is at the Ambiente Trade Fair in Frankfurt that I went to a couple years ago. Classic Germans. Look at that. Awesome, huh? You can't not notice them. You're going to remember them. And if they're funny, you're going to like them too. On the shelf, if you're selling against competitors, right? Whatever you're doing, no more so than at a retailer's shelf. It's so busy. Coming up with ideas to get people to like you with humor is going to set you apart. Restructuring our thinking in general. I thought this was my son Adam. I think it could be my son Joseph from more years ago. We have a pretty, humorous environment you can imagine, right? And at Halloween, I said, my son came to me and he said, Dad, what should I be for Halloween? I said, well, look, honey, we've got stuff all over the place. Just go choose something. When I said stuff, I meant we have a Superman outfit, we have a fireman outfit, we have a Batman outfit. For stuff, he just meant stuff hanging around. He ended up going out as Garbage Man. Dealing with stress. My daughter Emily's painting of the stressed out girl hangs in my office here. It invites kids to come in, says, I know you are stressed, sit down, let's talk. And as I mentioned very briefly earlier, humor and stress. The humor can help so much. Not only with things like I mentioned, endorphins and immune enhancement, but it also helps us get through awkward situations. It opens the door to really getting to know each other and helping each other through stress. Very quickly, this research by Dr. John Sarno talks about the mind-body connection. If you are constantly stressed, your body is going to start to feel it. He's done work to explain how people who thought they had back problems caused by things like, crushed vertebrae or this or that, there was nothing wrong with them physically. But there was true pain. You know why? Because the autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight mechanism that we have, it was constantly sending messages to change the musculature, to reducing the amount of oxygen going to muscles and tendons. There's a huge impact on your emotional state and your physical body. Parenting. This looks like I was taking my youngest son and trying to grow him into a bigger or better, I don't know, I was planting him. But we happened to have a hole, and what I wanted to mention was that the timeout is one of the greatest things on earth. Whoever came up with that, thank you, thank you, thank you. The idea here is that you take the child out of the situation where he's acting up, right? Don't wreck it for everyone. Don't scream at the child. Take him or her away. Let him have a few moments like a penalty box, right? The big children do it too on the ice. Get him away. Get him to cool down. I come in with humor. So we're talking again. And then I can work on consequences for behavior. And that's where the parenting carries on. Management. If you can get a 5-year-old boy and a dog to do anything together, you're brilliant. I think my daughter Bridget can do that. Other speakers have even talked about the role of humor and management in the past at TEDx. And the idea here is that, believe it or not, humor in the workplace increases productivity when used properly, reduces absenteeism, even helps the bottom line. Lots of research that's been done on that. Finally, personal relationships, whether it be around conflict about who's doing the chores or about dealing with the mundane situations, humor can play a wonderful role. One specific here. Anyone know where this is from? Space Mountain, good. Space Mountain, too cool. It's not about humor per se, but about dealing with the mundane with more creative things. I was such a nerd in grade 12. My high school group, we went to Space Mountain, we went to Disney. I was very excited to be there. Best roller coaster on earth, right? Roller coaster in the dark, too cool. But I got to the front of it, an hour wait. And I thought, oh no, an hour's wait. We paid $100 and now we have to wait an hour. Disney figured it out. The line was wonderful. It was so entertaining. They got it. It wasn't mundane. It was full of all kinds of interesting things to engage our interest. So, ultimately, we're just touching the surface of what humor is, I believe, and how it can improve our lives right now and into the future. So the question I have for you is, will you take humor seriously? Thank you.